Darkness covered the pediatric area, with only a few weak rays of light. Chris and Monica were in despair, their hearts shattered into pieces. The steady beeping of the monitor and the noise of the medical machinery were like tragic music echoing in the gloomy space. Here, they had just received the worst news any parent could imagine: their beloved son, Dennis, would not survive. "We have many other children who need to be warmed up," the doctor announced in a cold, professional tone, trying to hide the severity of his words. "I'm so sorry, my son." Monica burst into tears, tears rolling down her cheeks, as salty as the ocean. Her trembling hands clutched the incubator where little Dennis was fighting for his life. Her son's fragility is in stark contrast to the fierce love she has for him, a love that cannot accept this cruel fate. Besides Monica, Chris also couldn't contain his emotions. Anger boiled in his heart like a burning fire. "How can you say that?" he screamed, his voice shaking with pain. "My son needs to be saved just like other children." His eyes looked at Dennis, the little warrior fighting death, a war that seemed to be meaninglessly about to end. The doctors maintained their stance, although their eyes showed sympathy. "We're sorry," a doctor spoke up, "but the supply of incubators is running out and we're about to receive a patient. The other 3 newborns need urgent assistance." The doctor explained, his voice heavy with worry. "We are trying our best to balance the medical and humanitarian needs of this situation. This is not about giving up, but a consequence of difficult circumstances that force us to make decisions. Will be extremely sad." The doctor's words were like a knife cutting into Chris and Monica's hearts, stirring up extreme pain. "But my son is still fighting," Monica pleaded, her voice choked with a mixture of hope and fear. "It wants to live." However, the decision seems to have been decided. "In 3 days, we will have to withdraw the baby's respiratory support," the doctor affirmed, his voice cold and unshakable. Chris and Monica's pain seemed to tear their hearts apart. They cherish every moment with their son, remembering every precious heartbeat and every affectionate look. Every moment with Dennis is like a memory engraved by time, a silent farewell as time passes. Amid the noise of machines and the choking sobs of broken hearts, Chris and Monica prepared themselves for the day their son would leave. They couldn't imagine having to say goodbye to their baby, facing the abyss of loss, a scenario they never believed would happen, even though they had been warned in advance. This young couple was newly married, immersed in joy and looking forward to starting a family. Pregnancy quickly brought them ultimate happiness, plans for the future were drawn full of hope. However, fate challenged them with complications right from the first days of pregnancy, threatening Monica's health and hope. When Dennis was born, he was weak and needed special medical support. The story of Dennis, Chris and Monica becomes more tragic when Monica, a young mother, almost loses her life while giving birth. After going through a dangerous childbirth, Monica must continue to fight to recover. Meanwhile, little Dennis was placed in an incubator because he had a rare disease, bronchopulmonary dysplasia, BPD. BPD often affects premature babies, causing them to have difficulty breathing in oxygen exchange. A team of dedicated doctors and nurses stood by Dennis, performing a series of tests and procedures to stabilize the baby's condition. They explained that BPD caused the tissues in Dennis' lungs to become stiffer, more fragile, and less effective at exchanging oxygen. Describing Dennis's daily struggle for survival, "We are doing our best," doctors said, but his condition is complicated by his premature birth and the extent of his lung damage. Their words painted a bleak picture of the reality that Dennis faced. Since Dennis was born, Chris and Monica have spent most of their time in the hospital. Monica, who used to spend all day at her flower shop, now only cares about being with her son. She put all her hope in a miracle, hoping her son would be safe. Chris, the strong father, has to shoulder the responsibility of taking care of the family and the store. He divided his time between work and the hospital, trying to appear strong in front of his wife and children. However, the pain and fear of losing his baby son silently gnawed at his soul. Frequently, people see Chris alone in the flower shop, tears rolling down his cheeks, silently praying for his son's life. Chris is a devout man whose faith is tested every day by Dennis' serious illness. In contrast to Chris, Monica questions the existence of God. She couldn't understand why the God her husband believed in could allow an innocent child to endure such pain. Monica's despair and doubts made the atmosphere in the family even more heavy and gloomy. "Why does my child have to suffer so much?" Monica screamed. Her voice filled with bitterness and pain. Despair covered her fragile hope. If there is a supreme God, he would never abandon our son in this situation. Monica's faith in Chris's prayers gradually fades. Dennis's condition seemed to be getting worse. Doctors tried to give the boy comfort and hope, but the persistent illness did not allow them to do so. Each new morning brings more uncertainty and fear. Chris and Monica are immersed in a vortex of pain, hope and despair. They cling to each other for comfort, while facing the harsh reality that their son's life hangs on a thin thread. The next 3 days were a real torture for both of them. Monica was constantly at the incubator, her silent tears mingling with the steady beeping of the monitor. Chris sought comfort in faith, spending hours on his knees praying for a miracle that never seemed to come. "Stop it, Chris!" Monica screamed in utter despair, "Your God doesn't exist. Don't you see our son is getting worse and worse?" The extreme pain caused her to lose faith, leaving only anger and disbelief. Chris understood that it was his wife's ultimate pain. He held her gently, giving her the only comfort he could. He had no answer other than the assertion that they needed to support each other. Every moment passed like lead. Chris and Monica took turns next to Dennis, looking at their son's pale little face. They sang lullabies that Dennis might never hear again, told him about their flower shop, and about the sunny days the whole family would spend together. This is their desperate attempt to bring some normalcy to an already tragic situation. Then the dark night also covered. The decision was made, Dennis would be taken off life support the next morning. This news hit Chris and Monica like a cruel sentence, a punishment of fate that they could not escape. In the quiet night, illuminated only by the soft light from the medical machines, Chris prayed again. His prayer was as soft as a whisper, "Lord, please help us get through this difficult time. If it is your will to take my son away, please do your will, not my will." The extreme pain made him burst into tears next to his baby son. This is a farewell prayer, a request for strength so that Chris can endure the most painful moment, when his father's faith is tested to the extreme. He prayed for his son, for himself and for Monica, begging for a miracle. However, a part of him still wondered if God's will was the same as his will. The next morning came bringing with it extreme pain. Every moment of waiting seemed to last forever. Chris and Monica held each other's hands tightly, united in pain and uncertainty, facing the harshest reality. They prepared themselves to say goodbye to their only son. But no one could have expected what would happen that night. When the entire hospital was in silence, with relatives at home and patients sleeping, with only the noise of the life support machine keeping Dennis alive, a miracle happened. Next to their son's hospital bed, Chris and Monica fell asleep in each other's arms, immersed in grief and despair. Mental and physical exhaustion caused Chris and Monica to fall into a deep sleep, forgetting the pain of reality for a few short hours. In a vague moment between reality and dream, Monica suddenly saw a glowing figure next to Dennis's incubator. Her vision blurred as if she were looking through frosted glass. The figure leaned towards Dennis, touching the baby's head with extraordinary gentleness. Pure and brilliant light radiated from that person's hand, enveloping Dennis in invisible warmth. At first, Monica couldn't move or talk, she could only watch as this supernatural creature stood there touching her son. Panic engulfed her, breaking the veil of sleep. Her scream echoed in the quiet room, "There's someone there." The scream startled Chris awake. "What's up?" he asked. "There's someone over there," Monica shouted again, looking over Chris's shoulder to show him where the figure was. But when her eyes fully adjusted, the creature was gone, leaving behind only the feeling of a real presence. "There's someone here, I saw them," Monica repeated, stunned and confused. Chris, not understanding what was going on, also began to sob. Confusion mixed with hope suddenly welled up in their hearts. Choking emotions enveloped Chris and Monica. Tears rolling down their cheeks testified to the weight of the cruel reality they were about to face. In just 1 hour, dawn will break, and it will be time for them to say their final goodbyes to their little son. "Oh no, my dear son," the mother whispered, trying to suppress her sobs as she approached the incubator. They try to appear strong, but the strength seems to slowly fade away from them, making them easily succumb to the pain and loss that is about to happen. Every hour that passed was as precious as gold. Chris and Monica spent all their time memorizing every little detail of Dennis's face, every curve of their son's body. Small nose, soft hair, all are imprinted in their minds and hearts. The image of their little son about to be taken away from their arms caused them extreme pain. At 6 a.m., the doctors appeared with sad faces. They informed Chris and Monica in gentle but sorrowful voices that it was time to turn off Dennis' life support devices. For the first time since Dennis was placed in the incubator, the parents were allowed to hold their son in their arms. When they hold their baby, they feel the fragility and weakness of the little body. The warmth from Dennis passed to them, bringing with it the faint gasps that depended on the machines that would soon be silent. "Goodbye, parental love," they said chokingly, their voices shaking because of the great sadness. After the doctor's nod, they were allowed to turn everything off. Silence covered the room, leaving only the choked sobs of two broken hearts. "Are not," the woman screamed in despair as Chris hugged her tightly. They carefully turned off the machines that were keeping Dennis on Earth. The son's small chest gradually stopped beating, following each weak breath. Dennis's breathing gradually became weaker, each beat was sparse as if it was about to die. The mother held her child in her arms, tears rolling down her cheeks, sobbing endlessly. Extreme pain covered the whole room. Chris stood next to his wife, tears flowing freely, reflecting the father's extreme sadness at the death of his son. Dennis's heartbeat, once echoing above the steady beep of the monitor, now gradually slowed, then fell completely silent, leaving a jarring horizontal line on the screen. That moment seemed to stop, heavy and painful. It's the goodbye that no one wants, the harsh truth that no one wants. The doctors approached and carefully moved the incubator, revealing Dennis's peaceful face. Now, the baby is with God, in his loving arms. Extreme pain overwhelmed Chris. He knelt down next to his son, praying for the baby's soul to be at peace. Faith in miracles still glimmers in his heart, but the fragile hope seems to be about to fade away. Suddenly, a miracle happened, surpassing all logic and expectations. Dennis started breathing heavily again. At first there were faint, almost imperceptible breathing sounds, then the tiny movements of tiny hands. Finally, the little eyes opened, sparkling with light, looking at their parents with boundless love. The mother screamed in joy mixed with disbelief. Dennis's weak but energetic cry echoed throughout the room. The doctors were also surprised and couldn't believe their eyes. They went to check Dennis's vital signs, and realized a miracle. The baby was fighting for life in a strong, extraordinary way. A miracle happened. Dennis was given a chance to survive. Joy burst into the room, dispelling the previous pain and despair. Chris and Monica held their baby in their arms, cherishing every moment with him, grateful for the miracle that saved their baby boy's life. Hope. "Oh my dear son. Thank God." Monica screamed, dancing in joy mixed with happy tears as she held her baby in her arms. She turned to her husband and said, "He is truly alive again. God's love exists." The light of faith flashed in her eyes. Chris knelt down, filled with gratitude and relief. His prayers were answered. Looking at his son, now a living symbol of hope and miracles, he whispered, "Oh God, I thank you. Monica hugged Dennis tightly, whispering through happy tears, "Dear, I'm grateful to God." At this moment, the woman believes not only in the existence of God but also in His boundless love and compassion. This scene touched everyone present. The joy and amazement at the miracle happening before their eyes was clearly visible on their faces. Dennis' cry, now the sound of victory over adversity, resonates in everyone's heart, reminding them of the power of faith, love and hope. Doctors and nurses, both professional and admiring, conducted a series of tests to understand this miracle. The result left the entire medical team speechless. The disease that had once threatened Dennis' life had completely disappeared. It disappeared without a trace, as if the baby was born again. Dennis has completely recovered, with no trace of BPD, the disease that kept him in an incubator and almost took his life. News of the miracle baby spread quickly throughout the hospital and community. Doctors from all over visited Dennis, each wanting to witness this miracle with their own eyes. Dennis's miraculous recovery has become a symbol of hope and faith, defying all scientific explanation. Her story is a reminder to everyone, regardless of their beliefs, that the impossible can sometimes happen. A few days later, when Dennis left the hospital, there was loud applause. Nurses, doctors, even other patients who heard about the baby's case gathered to celebrate the miraculous recovery. Joy filled the air. The applause was not just a goodbye but a celebration of life and the extraordinary change that gave Dennis the opportunity to grow up and live life to the fullest. Dennis grew up healthy and happy. Your baby's health is never a concern again. The baby develops like any other child with curiosity and abundant energy, bringing joy to parents. However, Dennis is not an ordinary child. Your baby is a living reminder of the miracle that his life represents. Dennis's story continues to inspire not only those around him but also those who come from far away to visit him, fascinated by the extraordinary case of the boy who surpassed all limits. Dennis became a light for many people's faith, arguing eloquently against skepticism and hopelessness. Baby lives every day happily. Her family continues their journey of faith and love, becoming a beacon of hope that shows that even in the darkest of times, there is light that heals and renews. Surrounded by love, admiration and a profound sense of purpose, Dennis made his mark on the world not only as the boy who survived against all odds but also as the young man who continues to inspire and impressing all who were lucky enough to cross his path.